Hello, Goldie here again with another technical article for you. In all honesty, a technical article I hadn't really planned to do, a technical article that is the result of a crash that we had yesterday. Now when I say we, it was the SMCC. I was out with Wet Wipe Mugger and Dan came along with us, or to give him his official SMCC nickname, Lucky. The ride ended up with Wet Wipe and I going down on black ice, which is never a lot of fun. Poor old Wet Wipe is currently nursing a broken collarbone, which is not a lot of fun at all, and believe me, he really was in a lot of pain at the scene. But like the true professional he is, the first thing he said after I'd whipped his foot out of the clip on the bike and moved the bike to the side of the road was, "How's my bike?" And well, here it is. Wet Wipe's relatively new Ribble Winter Trainer. Really nice bike, love the colour, to be honest with you. I know that sounds slightly girly, but there is a lot more to the bike. Really well put together, he loves it, rides really well. In fact, I'll try and get him to write a review for the website. And it crashed really well, to be honest with you. I mean, you know, probably poor old Wet Wipe's collarbone took the brunt of the impact. But there's very, very little damage to the bike. All it had really suffered was rear mudguard had come unclipped. 5-minute job, put that back in. Everything else is tickety-boo. He's going to need some new bar tape. And really the only thing that had really suffered was that when you go down on the drive side, as he did, the rear derailleur mechanism usually takes a whack. And what happens is the little bracket it's on bends. And that puts everything out. So that's the only thing that really needs doing. So I'm going to straighten his rear mech bracket this afternoon. Now this is a job that you'll only need a couple of tools for, but one of them is a bit specialised. Probably cost you about 40 quid to buy. Is it worth buying one? I think it is actually, because these little brackets will bend very easily. You can bend them leaning your bike up against the wall if your bike falls over. And to be honest with you, it's not unknown for a bike shop to take a bike out of the box and for the bracket to be bent right out of the shipping crate. So let me show you the bracket that I'm talking about and what I'm going to be doing. Okay, so I've just moved the camera to give you a better view of the rear derailleur mechanism, just hanging down here. And it's on this little soft alloy bracket. If I take the camera in, so just zoomed in on the bracket I'm talking about. Little soft alloy bracket there, you can see it's silver against the blue frame. Derailleur bolting into it here, and that bracket is designed to be sacrificial. It's meant to bend or break in a crash so that you don't bend or break your frame, which is preferable, especially if you have a carbon frame. This is alloy. So what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to take this mechanism off. We're going to need to screw an alignment tool in here, and then literally, it sounds a little bit of brute force and ignorance, we're literally going to bend that bracket straight. But the alignment tool we're going to use will allow us to measure whether the bracket is straight. And let me show you what that looks like. So, the tools I'm going to be using this afternoon: Allen wrench, just to take the mech hanger off. Dead easy. But here is the other tool I'm talking about. Now this is a Derailleur alignment gauge. This is a really nice one. I treated myself to this one. I was feeling a little bit extravagant. A Park Tools Derailleur alignment gauge. And the way that this works is, once we've unscrewed that rear mechanism, we're literally going to screw that threaded rod into it. And that's going to allow me to spin this tool around the circumference of the wheel. And then it's going to allow me to use this little gauge to mark how far the tool is from the wheel. And by making sure that we've bent the bracket so that the wheel is equidistant at every point from the gauge, we know that the bracket is straight. So let me get on with removing the rear mech and fitting the tool. Okay, so taking the rear mech off is easy enough. 10mm Allen key. They're never usually done up very tight. They shouldn't be. That bracket is very soft alloy, and if you tighten it too much you'll strip the thread very easily. So what I'm doing here, just unscrew the mech. Now you'll get to a point where the mechanism will want to flick forward against its own spring pressure. So just support it whilst you take this bolt out. Make sure the bolt's all the way out, and then just gently drop the mechanism away. Now this gives me a threaded hole here that I can put my alignment tool in, so I'm going to do that now. So the alignment tool, just grease the threads slightly, never hurts. Line them up very carefully in that bracket, and then gently snug the tool in. Obviously when you buy Park Tools, that doesn't usually happen. They are a quality item. One of the little knobs has fallen off of this. So please just give me a minute whilst I rectify that. Where are we? Right, back on with the job. Okay, so I've screwed my alignment gauge in. Now, what that allows me to do is, as you can see, that gauge will now spin all the way around the wheel. What I'm going to do is I'm going to find a reference point on the wheel to take my measurements from, and then I'm just going to gently bend that bracket so that it lines up, okay? And literally I'm going to bend it using the tool. Now, I want a common reference point, and the reason for that is that if your wheel is ever so slightly buckled and you take a reading there, there, there and there from a buckled wheel, there could be some natural differences in those in any case. Whereas taking a reading from one point, we know that we're always going to be finding a point that's always going to be the same distance away from the last time away from the frame and the mech as the last time you read it. And I'm going to use, for obvious reasons, the valve. So the valve becomes my reference point. So what I do is literally just move the tool up and push the bar out until it just touches the wheel at that point. Okay. Now you can see just touching the wheel at that point. I've got these little O-rings, and these are markers. So I'm just going to slide that O-ring down so that I know what length of rod I had there. Okay. I now need to spin the tool to the bottom of the wheel. This is where my marker comes in, and just going to take the valve down to the bottom as well. And there we go. Okay, now I can actually see that what we've got here is a situation where I've got a big distance between the marker and the tool here. So effectively what needs to happen at this point is that bracket needs to be pulled out. Obviously didn't want to bore you all with 5 minutes of toing and froing and gently bending and squeezing what have you, so I've fast forwarded this for your pleasure. So we've now got a situation where the mech hanger is set vertically. We now need to measure it horizontally and just repeat the process. So let's take the valve up to... Same process here, folks. Bend, measure, repeat. So once again I've used the fast forward button to give you 5 minutes of your life back, which I hope you appreciate. Right, so we've now got a situation where the bracket is aligned vertically and horizontally. So we should be able to put the mech back in and get some fairly accurate shifting, which is what I'm going to do now. Okay, so we've got our bracket nicely set up. It's aligned vertically, it's aligned horizontally. Next thing I'm going to do is put the mechanism back on. Now again, when you put the mechanism back on, you're going to need to hold it against its spring pressure, which is what I'm doing here. And be very careful as you engage that thread. Like I say, soft alloy, soft threads, easily damaged. Okay, hand tight and a little bit more. So, proof of the pudding. Does he have gears? There we go. It's taken top, which it wouldn't do before. Okay, might need just a little bit of indexing, but believe me, that is a heap better than it was. Sorted. So there you go, a fairly simple, if a little bit fiddly job, one of those jobs, a little bit of trial and error just to get it right, but worth it like any adjustment, worth taking your time over to get it right. Wet Wipe now has a perfectly straightened hanger, his gears are all working beautifully, so Wet Wipe buddy, as soon as your shoulder is fixed and you're back riding, I should hope to see you taking advantage of the wonderfully slick shifting that you now have. Thanks for watching this technical video. Another one coming shortly on replacing bar tape. Anyone would think we'd had a crash. Alright, take care, see you next time.